Welcome in to Says Who Sports right now, the coach of the high school football team with the longest current winning streak in the nation. 57 straight games, can set the Ohio high school all-time football consecutive wins record of 58 in a row on Friday night. A man whose teams have won an Ohio high school record 14 state championships in 3 different divisions, and all since 2000. His program is perhaps the gold standard of sustained excellence in Ohio high school football. Coach Tim Goodwin of the Marion Local Flyers. Coach Goodwin, great to have you here at Says Who Sports. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, John.
Coach, Marion Local High School, for those viewers and listeners who don't know, the home of the Flyers is located in the village of Maria Stein in western Ohio. Farming, agriculture surrounds these towns. Generations of kids grow up in the fabric of strong family. Coach, tell us about what makes the community of Maria Stein and the surrounding communities special, and how that feeds into sports excellence.
Yeah, okay. It's a complicated question. Lots of factors, but I've heard Ohio described as just a series of bubbles. There's not really a typical spot in Ohio. You have a bubble here, a bubble there. That's very unique from each other, and we're in one of those bubbles that is unique. The area right around here, I would say Mercer and Allglaze, kind of west central Ohio. Mercer is right on the Indiana border. So if you go straight west of here about 15, 20 miles, you hit Indiana. You would drive through St. Henry and Fort Recovery on your way from Maria Stein. But, I'm not a history buff per se, but I know way back, when we're talking 1800s with canals and so forth, the immigrants from Germany came to Cincinnati and took a flatboat ride up the canal and saw some really good farmland here and decided this is where we're going to, have 80 acres and a farm. And those are the roots of this area. From that time, obviously a lot has changed. But the German ancestry is still very strong. The farm background is very strong. Now, farming has changed a lot.
Sure.
Especially, maybe even in the last 20 years, I would say the farm kids that, are actually growing up on a production ag farm, is not that high, maybe 10, 20%. But we still have a lot of kids whose parents were raised on a farm, and we have a lot of kids in our school that work for a farmer. Even I think the first step off the farm, is a blue collar type job. You're a welder, you're a machinist, you're working with your hands, you're doing physical work. As I describe our kids, as they just grow up being physical. They don't grow up playing video games. They grow up, being outside, either working or playing with some sort of ball. And I was just talking to someone yesterday, this area just loves sports, and not just football, whatever sport is in season. And, I think we're a beneficiary of that. And, our kids understand angles. They understand, just basic fundamentals of playing a ball in the air. And just like I said, anticipating angles is huge for a defensive team. Mm-hmm. And, our kids have this very good ability just from playing sports all the time. And our kids don't really specialize in one. They play a lot of them. And, I think it helps a high school football program. So there's kind of my nutshell summation.
I think that's outstanding, Coach. Appreciate that, and I think it's spot on. Marion Local, again, for those that don't know, is a member of the Midwest Athletic Conference. Tough conference, as Coach Goodwin mentioned, in many sports beyond football. Championship conference. Check out the Midwest Athletic Conference. From my perspective, watching it for decades, I've got to be as tough as any in the country, regardless of size. Coach, talk about what makes the Midwest Athletic Conference, the Mighty Mac as we'll call it, special.
And just speaking of the fall, because you got the Minster girls cross country team, and I don't know how many state titles they have, but they're an absolute machine. Then MAC volleyball might be the best sport we have. I mean, it's incredible, the volleyball that gets played over here. Then you go into, basketball. The basketball's been a lot more diversified between the schools, but then you get into the spring and, Coldwater baseball, Minster baseball, St. Henry baseball have all been very, very good. And then Marion Local has won the last two state track titles. So, it's pretty cool. So you get, competition. We're playing obviously Coldwater this week, and they're going to make us better. They're going to make us better, whether we win or lose, or they win or lose. We're going to make each other better, and they're especially in our size of situation, the better teams are not getting tested like we are, and so it just pays off. And then you have the great community, so the coaches stay because, coaching in high school has to be fun, or else, if you start calculating, your hourly rate times your heartache and headache and so forth, like the fun part of it has to be a big part of that equation. Or else you're going to quit and find something else. And in this area, it is fun because you have great kids and you have parents that, for the most part, support what you're doing. They're not micromanaging you or trying to use this program to get to the next level, at the expense of the team. And so it's fun to coach. And so, therefore, you get coaching staffs like ours that have been together for decades, and like Coldwater's that have been together for decades. We did a film session this morning with the varsity before school. This is Tuesday, and that's our routine. We watch film on Monday afternoon and Tuesday morning and so forth. But, I was just explaining to the team, it's like, look, I've coached against this Coldwater staff for over 20 years. Like, everyone has a personality, and, everyone has kind of things they like to do on certain spots of the field. So, we go way back, but it's fun.
And love that. The hourly rate times the heartache and headache. That's awesome. And we'll talk about winning as part of that. Talk about bumping that value up, that equation. Coach would have it no other way, and his team, than to be facing the rival and fellow undefeated Coldwater Cavaliers Friday night. For it's not about a winning streak, not about the national leader winning streak to Coach Goodwin and the Marion Local Flyers. It's all about the biggest stakes to them, which is the league championship and an undefeated season, bringing home the hardware in preparation for the state playoffs. But Coach, back to winning, and again, as I mentioned in the open, 14 state championships, an all-time record for any school, any level in the state of Ohio high school football. So you can talk about the investment, right, in that calculation you just mentioned, hourly rate, heartache, headache, and the joy of it. But let's face it, players, coaches, am I missing something, Coach? You're in it to win, and winning is part of the joy. And certainly, and I look forward to you speaking to this, coaching and developing the kids and those relationships that last a lifetime, preparing them for life, all huge things. But there's nothing better than doing that while you're winning a lot, Coach. Talk about the importance of winning. If you're going to do it, why not win?
Right. I mean, there's no doubt about that, but it's how you approach it and where your heart is, right? Like, the older I get, like, you've heard it said 100 times about the destination, and the journey and so forth. You have to enjoy the journey, or else the destination, no matter what it is, it is not worth it. I've been down that road before. I was a young coach, and I grew up, as a son of a high school coach, and there was nothing more I wanted to do than coach a team that took a deep run in the playoffs. And I was able to do that. And then, when that season's over, it's over, and nothing really changed with your life. So you quickly reflect, like, all right, that was fun, but let's really focus on what's the importance, and what's going to last longer than the actual win. And I think, to me, the process of doing the things that you have to do to give yourself a chance to win is the joy, if you go through that process and you're not able to win consistently, I get it, that would not be enjoyable. But I can't speak on that because I'm fortunate. I'm at Marion Local, and if we go through that process diligently, we're going to have a great chance to win. And so if I were somewhere else, maybe I would reflect on what I think now and tweak a few things. But I just love. I'm 53 years old now, and I just love being part of a unit that we're all pulling the rope in the same direction, and everybody wants the same thing, and is willing to go through incredible sacrifice and hardship to do it. I don't think you're going to find that a lot of other places in the world, other than, just a team and just the intense experience that you have as a team, going through the ups and downs. And the thing is, and I was explaining this to someone else that was interviewing me like you, and I appreciate you guys, but it's not my favorite thing in the world to do. But
sure,
it's a unique spot. Every week you are evaluated publicly, as a player and as a coach, and even though whatever we get at a game, 2,500 people, that's a big deal to our kids and to us. That's everybody we know, plus a lot more people that we don't know. And if something goes wrong, we need to fix it. And I think that's really, really important, and I think it's really, really cool, and it's a really, really good experience, because I don't think it happens, outside of this type of environment where this went sideways. We're going to own it. We're going to look at it, and we're going to fix it, and we're all in it, because it doesn't matter if it's the left guard or the wide side corner, right? The field corner, it doesn't matter. If either one of those guys break down, we got to fix it, or else everyone is affected. And so everyone, just like I said, pulls on the rope and gets back to work, and like I said, acknowledges the problem and owns the problem, and we're going to fix it. And I think that's really, really satisfying.
A hallmark of your Marion Local Flyers football teams has been discipline, and obviously that's part of that process you talk about. What are the core values, Coach, those principles of Marion Local Flyer football? Where does that discipline come from, especially that shows itself so often during crunch time, during those playoff runs when you have games that are tight down to the last few minutes, somebody makes a play. Does that become expected per the process? Explain the process and discipline and those principles of Flyer football.
Yeah, that's a multifaceted question there for sure. For first, our kids come to us for the most part of having consequence for their actions. At home, there's consequences, and and if they're coming to us and they haven't really had consequences for actions prior to us, it's going to be a tough road, and it's probably not going to be a successful road for that kid. in our program because we'll just find somebody else that is disciplined. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. But I'm not big on like mission statements and all this hoo-ha that some coaches are, and if it works for them, great for them. But our motto basically is be humble and work hard. And being humble it covers a whole lot of ground there. You're respecting every opponent, respecting your teachers in school, respecting your coaches, your teammates, taking coaching, and obviously the work hard. But I would say, like I said, our track team has won the last two state track titles, and I was talking to I think my brother who lives out of the area before the state track meet, and I just said I'll bet you that it was big. Relays were a huge part of our track success at the state level. All right, that's where we scored most of our points. And with relays, it's like what I was talking about, the left guard or the field corner. Like if one guy is off, it's the whole team is tanked, right?
Absolutely.
So so I was talking to my brother and I said, here's the cool thing about Marion Local. Like these kids are going to show up at the track meet and you can count on their splits. Like their split is, you're not going to have a kid that tanks a split and just tanks the team. Like it's not going to happen. And what do you know? Our relays, performed, set school records, ran as fast as they had and, scored really well. So it's just, that has been ingrained into them. We're just going to show up and do our thing. And I think, certainly the success we've had in football helped that. That's the expectation. And kind of specifically in football, I think you can ingrain a lot of that during practice. Like a big part of our practice script. All right, I got a great coaching staff. Like I dare you to find a D7 school that has 10 smart guys like I have that are widely experienced at different levels of college football and just great guys and smart people, like they're successful. And so we're all, and I love Google because you can all collaborate on documents at the same time. So we're all collaborating on these practice scripts. And a big part of our practice script is making this hard. Like we're putting kids in bad spots over and over and over. Like, all right, so the scout's offensive coach, scripts the play. Like somebody's going to get on there and script a defensive play that is the worst case scenario for that offensive play. Either we got to make a check, we got to make an adjustment, we have to match a linebacker on a running back on a wheel route. Just the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen to that defensive call. And it just over and over and over throughout the year. And I think we put a lot of pressure on them in practice, and I think for the most part they feel games are easy.
Outstanding, Coach. Appreciate that insight. How do you, in talking to the kids, how do you keep the noise, the distraction away? I mean, the noise level is deafening in our society for so many reasons, including that thing called the cell phone. How does the program keep the noise at bay and keep the focus on the thing?
Well, it's getting harder with people like you around, I'll tell you that. Spectrum was just out here interviewing us yesterday at the end of practice, because we're going to be on Spectrum this week. And, our kids are mature, and we try to joke around about it. And, it's the typical team aspect where you're making fun of the players that got interviewed for being pretty boys and so forth, But I think the big picture is, like, that's just not who we are, It's just not who we are. We're not here to promote. We're here to do our thing. And, good things have happened, and, kids have certainly got recognition from that. But, we're not blasting out the fact that we tied the record with 57 games in a row. It's just be humble, right? Be humble, work hard.
Absolutely.
Keep your head down, keep working.
Absolutely, Coach. And as I mentioned your teams at Marion Local have won state championships in multiple divisions, size-wise, 5, 6, 7, and multiple times that way. What do you say, Coach Goodwin, to those who might suggest, and essentially not any disrespectful way, maybe out of just not knowing, that type of just ignorance, that bigger schools, bigger divisions, we'll say D1 with all the D1 recruited college athletes, for example, purposes only, like a Lakewood St. Edward or some of the big Cincinnati teams, Muller, those historic types of big school teams is tougher football than what's played in the smaller school, and in this case, in the MAC. What do you say? How do you help educate people about that?
I think when people watch us, and a lot of people from out of the area see us late in the playoffs, and a lot of times we're playing really well and hitting on all cylinders. Like we by appearance, we play good football.
Yes.
Like our offenses are varied, they're multiple. We can execute a lot of different stuff at a pretty good level. Typically we can run and we can pass, equally or do whichever is working. We've been blessed with speed, so our special teams have been very, very good. We have a really good kicker now that is a huge weapon for us too. And then we play a very multiple defense, with a lot of different coverages and a lot of different stunts. And I think when you see us and you can see all 11 guys moving kind of in unison, like, it's impressive, and I think that catches people's eye. And, that's all we can control is, how we perform. And to be honest, I don't care necessarily how we would match up against some of these other schools. If we would match up,
It's
I'm
apples
certainly,
oranges, right? Good football is good football.
Right, and I think that's why the debate goes on the interwebs all the time, is could Marion Local beat so-and-so or whatever, just because it looks like we're playing good football. And notwithstanding, we might have a 190-pound guard playing, and they might have a 270-pound guard, So control what you can control. It just depends on the team that we have. If you were to actually ask me how we would do against a team, I would look at it like I would every other game that we ever played. How do we match up? Against some of those teams, we might match up pretty good, depending on what their strengths are and what ours are for that year. And other times, it might be, holy cow, they got a lot of speed and we're not that fast this year. Or, we're not as stout as what we are sometimes, and they just pound the rock, and that would happen. And that, the same thing happens at our, levels. Some years when we play Kirtland, we're thinking, we match up all right, because we got stout linebackers this year and so forth. And other times, we're playing glorified defensive backs at linebacker, and they're just going to pound it right at you. So that's tough. So that's the answer to that question.
Outstanding stuff, Coach. That's some great nuggets of helping us understand in there for sure. And the bottom line is, and anybody would agree, strong football is strong football, regardless of where or what. Especially those staples for which Marion Local is known as well. Passing attack, if that's clicking here and there or regularly, that's great. But you're always going to get from a viewer's, a limited on the periphery perspective, you're going to get strong tackling, strong defense, and strong running game from the Marion Local Flyers. And frankly, to so many, that's sexy. Certainly to me, that is football. Coach, you've had so much success at Marion Local. Again, 14 state championships, all-time record in the state, just since 2000. Been there a couple of other times. But how do you, despite that success or due to it, how do you continue to get better as a coach?
That's another great question. I'll tell you, you do a pretty good job at this.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah. I've been very fortunate to have had what I would consider the perfect situation. Um, I've had a stable element to the coaching staff that I can rely on, that are, rocks, and we know each other, just as good as we probably know some of our family members. But then I've also had a contingent that have come in and been new, and them maybe taken opportunities elsewhere, and I've learned some nuggets from them and incorporated the stuff that we've liked, and that's been a key part too. And I've had some really good coaches coach with me for a couple years. Bob Guesswich, who's now won a state title at Perry last year.
Yes.
He assisted us for a couple years, and he had some really good. He's a good offensive mind for sure, and he and Bob has a unique outlook on life too, which is interesting too, which was fun. But so he and Marcus Overman was here for a while. Dan Toby was here for a while. Brad Luthman was here for a while. All came with some good ideas. So I've learned some things from them that helped us. To be honest with you, they helped us, and then we had this stability. And it's just different now. Like if you would look at my Twitter timeline, or whatever the heck it's called now, like it. You can get whatever scheme or philosophy or whatever you want just from my Twitter timeline, and so it's an interesting time to coach. Way back when, if you wanted to learn a new scheme, I mean, it was hard. You had to go and basically find a college that was doing what you wanted to do, and try to convince them to spend a day with you and let them and let you look at their film and explain, what you were seeing on the film. And it was tough, especially for schools that aren't cranking out, college athletes all the time. They didn't really care about us as much as, if we were cranking out blue chips a lot, now they're a little more interested in keeping us happy, right?
Sure,
So,
sure.
it's a really cool time to be a coach.
And coach, again, back to that consistent excellence of your program at Marion Local. But obviously there are, and as you mentioned, from scheme perspectives, from approach perspectives, always learning going on. So much success that you've enjoyed, you individually as a coach. What low moment pops to mind, Coach? From the outside, people see it and say, man, what a ride. The gold standard, as I mentioned, Ohio high school football, big hardware, almost an annual thing, as crazy as it is. But is there a low moment in your career that pops to mind from which you learned valuable lesson, or maybe the lowest moment? And any doesn't have to be on the field, but a moment where you said,
Yeah, and I think it goes back to kind of the perspective and your goals and your outlook, that we talked about before. But most of us go through this if you're in this long enough. But I've lost players before, and I've lost, a player in season and in a car accident, and that to me, I think that stands out as just the lowest, the toughest, because it's just such a tight knit family, and and it was a car accident on a weekday, and it happened in the morning, and to go out there and try to do something at practice, and he was a starter, and it wouldn't have mattered if, but to literally have to replace the kid in the lineup, after that, and it wasn't much of a practice, but we had to go out and do something, and I think the kids wanted to, and I think and I've had other situations where I've lost players, after the fact, and every one of those are just that's the tough parts, and that's where you got it. And Coldwater and Chip and went through it earlier this year. They lost a team member, back in late summer, and it was actually after a scrimmage, and so they certainly can relate to that. But yeah, those are tough, and lots of life getting learned really fast in moments like that.
Appreciate you sharing that, Coach. And just a few more for you, and so appreciative of you taking the time during the lead up to Coldwater and the league championship, all the stakes, special time. You're a man of strong faith, and obviously that guides not just life but your approach to coaching. What is the main message, Coach, if you will, the most important message you preach, talk about with your players that goes beyond football? I mean, football is obviously a microcosm of life, right? Life is the bigger game. How do you help them understand that this is about life, and the lessons you are teaching as a coach are life, not just on that field?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I am a Christian, and I do have faith. And we have an FCA huddle here that I participate with, and that's really my main, outreach with that aspect.
Fellowship Christian Athletes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yes.
It's a great organization that's in a lot of schools across the United States, but it certainly is big in Ohio. So I'm involved in that, for kids that want to dig a little deeper into their faith journey and spiritual matters. But in football and during practice, there are just certain times, there's certain sayings in football that we use that definitely pertain, to outside, football. And, the way I think you described it, perfectly. Football is like life, and hopefully it's in a safe and protected area where you can experience the ups and downs together and have some mentorship for the kids. I think you're missing out on the best part of coaching if you don't delve into that aspect. But we have a saying, for example, if we're going against a blitzing, stunning type defense, like, they're going to guess right. So don't take a bad play and make it worse. Okay. So, if something happens in the community or in the news, like, look, this guy just blew it. If he would have just stopped right here at this moment, yeah, he was in trouble and he did wrong, but he was going to be okay. It's something he could recover from. But then he took a bad play and he made it worse and he escalated and maybe he died, or maybe now instead of a misdemeanor he got a felony, or maybe instead of just having to go through marriage counseling now he lost his marriage, and I think moments like that come up that you can step into and kind of mold the kids into your way of looking at life a little bit.
Well said, Coach Goodwin. Tim Goodwin, Marion Local Flyers, with us now. Coach, who is your favorite football coach ever at any level?
Yeah, I've obviously read a lot of autobiographies of the old time coaches, but none of them really came to life for me that much. But I really enjoy Bill Belichick. He is really since he's not coaching this year, he's got a like a YouTube podcast that comes out like 2 or 3 days a week with he and Matt Patricia and Mike Lombardi, and that's very interesting. And I was always on the Patriots website, and I'm not a huge NFL guy because I just don't have time to watch it on Sundays. Because I want to spend time with my family and or watch watch our opponent, right? So one of those two. So. But I would always every week get on the Patriots website because he would break down a couple plays from the previous game and go over, a couple keys to the next game, and I learned from him, and that those situations. Just it's hard to go from. It's hard enough to take something in college and apply it to a high school, and it's really hard to take the NFL and apply it. But he would have some sayings or some basic rules that I would use. So, for example, special teams. He had 2 rules: catch the ball, no penalties. Guess what the rules are for Marion Local special teams? Catch the ball, no penalties. Like, it works. Like, the guy's good. Now you have to get through kind of his grumpy persona when he was actually coaching, but there's a long answer to a short question.
That's outstanding. I appreciate that. Coach, you mentioned family or watching your opponent. How do you strike, how have you struck, and how do you find I don't even know if we use the word balance, because truly what is ultimately balance, but
Right.
is it tough to get the time with family when are you ever able to not be thinking the game, especially from mid-August through Marion Local? Your teams are playing into December, certainly late November. Are you ever able to turn the game off? Are you always thinking it in some way?
Now that's another good question, because it would be interesting to see what my kids and my wife say about that question, to be honest with you. But it's not so much the time away, especially now with technology, but it's more of where your mind is while you're home, and you just said it perfectly. Because football is very structured. On Monday your practice lasts till whatever 6, Tuesday 5:30, Wednesday 5:30, Thursday 5, and you have JV games on Saturday mornings. Home freshman games I would go to on Monday after our practice, but it's very structured. So your family knows when you're going to be home for the most part, and so I don't think the time away was ever too big of a deal. But yeah, it's more about the focus, and I can't say I was totally successful at it. And my kids are all grown now; they're out of the house. I'm actually a grandfather. I have a grandson, so that's awesome. But
How old's the grandson, Coach?
he's 1, so he's in a real fun stage. He's like 15 months, so
Yeah, that's where
really
my granddaughter is. Sorry, I just became
yeah.
we just became grandparents, and same thing, 15 months, 16 months, and little girl, and man, it's awesome, right?
Yeah, a lot of fun. They're toddling around, and yeah. So yeah, I think I did okay, but probably not great. To summarize that answer.
Yeah, I wonder if Tim Goodwin may be, gosh, still running the Marion Local Flyers program when your grandson gets there. 15 years? Who knows? Who knows? That's crazy to consider. Anyway, Coach, lastly, share your gratitude, if you will, your thanks for where you are and what you've been able to enjoy. Not just the success, the trophies, the hardware, the state championships at a historic level, but the community essentially, which is family that you've been part of.
Yeah, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this, because it's a huge part of the puzzle. Obviously, I talked about this has to be fun, or else you're not going to be able to last in it. So it has been fun. I have obviously a lot of great friends here, and it's really cool for me right now at this point in my career. This is year 26 at Marion Local, so I'm getting a lot of the circle back generation, and we're actually going through a kind of a growth situation here in our district, and a lot of those families are students of mine, players of mine, and it's just really, really cool to see those kids back as adults, having families, enjoying a really, what appears to me anyway, good professional life. It's a really, really great place, and I'm thankful to be here. And another part, I think a piece of it was the Board of Education back when, allowed me to become an administrator.
Yes, you're principal at Marion
Yeah,
Local.
yeah, and still, matter of fact, I took my tie off for this because I thought the tie would look weird on this, but I'm gonna put it back on. But
Yeah, I got you.
so I mean, that was a big part of it too, because I was at the point in my teaching career, I was ready to do something different. I was ready, to make some decisions here and there because I had some thoughts on the educational process, and I wanted to give it a go, but I wanted to keep coaching, and I was able to do that, and the other administrators have supported me in that by, kind of picking up the slack on some supervision that I can't do, just because I'm coaching football. So, I'm really appreciative of my fellow administrators over the years. In particular, Superintendent Mike Pullman. He's been the superintendent my whole time here. He's just been great to work for and work with alongside, and he's done a lot to allow me to keep doing this.
So well said, Coach Goodwin. And don't want to leave this out. What will it take to beat the bitter rival and well-coached Coldwater Cavaliers on Friday night for the league championship?
Yeah, and you said bitter rival a couple times. I would kind of disagree with that.
Well, intense rivalry.
Right, intense
yes.
is the right
That's
word.
What I meant.
Intense
Yes.
is the right word. Yeah, because Chip Otten is about as good as a human being as you'll ever run across, and we respect the heck out of Coldwater. For us, I think we match up fine. We just have to go and play a good game. Defensively, we're going to have to mix up what we're doing and make them earn everything. Offensively, they're kind of one of those gambling defense I was talking about. So we're going to have to not take a bad play and make it worse. And when we hit a good one, we need to make them pay. So, that's where I'm at right now on Tuesday for Friday's game.
Outstanding. Coach Tim Goodwin of the mighty Marion Local Flyers, Midwest Athletic Conference, the MAC, Western Ohio, strong football, strong fundamentals, family, all of the above. Coach, appreciate your time so much. Great respect for what you do and what the program is about. And best to you on Friday versus Coldwater, but also as you head into your customary place, what's become the annual passage of Marion Local in the state football playoffs. Thanks again, Coach.
All right, thanks a lot. This was enjoyable.